And we all know the impact of working for both a bad leader and a great leader. And when you work for a bad leader, you don't feel engaged, empowered, inspired, motivated. When your alarm clock goes off in the morning, you dread waking up and having to show up to work. You don't want to be part of the organization. You're basically a cog. And unfortunately, a lot of people around the world work for those types of leaders. In fact, there was a study that was actually done on 400,000 Americans. And it actually found that working for a bad leader can quite literally kill you. Because it's one of the leading causes of stress, which translates into cardiovascular disease and heart disease. So not only is it bad for the organization, it's quite literally bad for the very people who work for that kind of a leader. Now, on the other side, we all know what it's like to work for a great leader as well, where when you show up to work, you feel engaged and empowered and motivated, where you feel like somebody is there that has your back. And never before have we needed these types of leaders, these types of great leaders. And it's because leaders quite literally shape the world. I mean, think about the role that leaders play in society. They invest in nonprofits and charitable organizations. They fight for social causes. They build the products and services that so many of us use in our lives and inside of our organizations. They create organizations that offer jobs for millions and billions of people around the world. They create cultures that shape not only how employees behave at work, but also outside of work, what they value, what they care about, what they believe. So leaders have a tremendous impact, not just on organizations, but also on society as a whole. And this is why I think this visual of a lighthouse is so relevant for the leader of today and of the future. But I think we can all agree that things change quickly. Things change all the time, all right? The pace of change is one of the things that we keep hearing about. So I think it's important for us to look towards the future and to try to understand, what will leadership look like in the future? What will it take to be a leader in the future? And so this was kind of the basic question that I started off with when I was doing my research. And it forced me to ask kind of two questions. The first is, will the leader of 2030 be that different than today? And if so, how? So to try to understand this, I embarked on an extensive research project over the past year. Now, to give you a little bit of context why this is so crucial, I estimate that by 2030, we're going to have between 88 million and 440 million leaders around the world. That is, people who are responsible for others. Now, of course, the numbers are quite diverse because one is very conservative, one is a little bit less conservative. But if you kind of want to go somewhere in the middle, we're looking at around 200 million leaders around the world by the year 2030. That is a lot of people. If we're going to have hundreds of millions of people in leadership roles where their job is to shape society, to shape the world, to shape cultures and values, then we better make sure that we have the right people in place. So how do we figure out what the leader of the future is going to look like? So I interviewed 140 CEOs at companies around the world. In fact, I'm still doing one or two of these interviews because the manuscript for this book isn't even due for another week. So I interviewed the CEOs of companies like Unilever, MasterCard, Best Buy, Oracle, Yahoo, Kaiser, all over the world, over 20 countries representing over 35 industries, and these CEOs are collectively responsible for the lives of over 7 million people. In addition to that, I also partnered with LinkedIn, the world's largest professional social network. I'm sure many of you are on LinkedIn. And we surveyed almost 14,000 employees around the world who identified as being employed full-time. And the idea here was to try to match what CEOs are telling me versus what employees who work for these CEOs are actually experiencing. And what I wanted to understand is, what will it take to be a leader in the future? What are the common themes that keep coming up from all of these discussions with 140 CEOs? Now, the first question that I asked all of these CEOs is a very basic one. What is leadership? Who is a leader? And the responses that I got back to this question just totally blew my mind. I got responses like, that's a good question. Or, oh man, that's a tough one. Or, nobody's ever asked me that before. And you can imagine I'm interviewing these CEOs, I'm thinking, okay, let me understand this. You are the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. You are responsible for the lives of thousands of employees, and this is a hard question? Doesn't make any sense. And so this totally blew me away, but then I started to think about it a little bit, and I realized that we take these concepts for granted. Leadership and being a leader, most people take it for granted. It's sort of like water. I mean, if you had to define water to somebody, would you be able to? I mean, what would you say? It's a clear, tasteless liquid? Thousands of liquids fit into that category. But everybody knows what water is because we're surrounded by it. It's everywhere. And so we assume that everybody knows what water is. And leadership is very much the same. We experience leadership and we see leaders every day in multiple forms. Inside of your company, when you go to the supermarket to buy something and you see a supervisor and how they interact with the rest of their employees. When you go shopping for anything. When you watch TV, when you listen to the news, when you listen to the radio, when you play sports. It's everywhere. And because it's everywhere, we sort of assume that everybody knows what it is. And everybody knows what a good leader is and who a leader is and what makes a great leader because it's everywhere. But what I learned from asking these CEOs these questions is that leaders don't spend enough time asking this very, very basic thing. So ask yourselves that mentally. What is leadership? How would you define leadership if I had to ask you to define it? 140 CEOs I interviewed, I got 140 responses on how they define leadership. No 140 responses were the same. How could that be the case? 140 of the world's top CEOs all define leadership differently. And the way that they define leadership then dictates the type of organization that they create. Some leaders that I interviewed said, leadership is about results. It's about putting the right people in the right chairs and achieving the mission of the organization. Nothing else matters. And then you look at the type of culture that that CEO creates, and it reflects on the definition that he gave me. And then another CEO would say something like, it's about purpose and meaning and impact and doing the right thing and making the world a better place. And you see that that CEO created a different culture. So the definitions and how you think about these things matter a great deal. And the fact that CEOs and business leaders around the world don't spend enough time thinking about it also means that the organizations as a whole don't spend enough time thinking about this. And that is a challenge. So getting back to the two original questions that I asked, will leadership be that different in the future, in 10 years, and if so, how? The general consensus from all the CEOs that I interviewed is, while there are a core set of attributes that will remain relevant for leaders, things like being able to create a vision, things like being able to execute on strategy, those things will remain relevant, and they've always been relevant. But what is also true is that when we think about the future of leadership, leaders are going to require a new set of skills and mindsets in order to lead. Why is that the case? Because the organizations themselves are going to look fundamentally different. Technology, artificial intelligence making its way into organizations, purpose, meaning, and impact, globalization, the changing nature of talent and what talent even looks like, and what they care about and what they value. The lifespan of organizations is shrinking. This means we're going to have new business models, new ways of working, new ways of thinking about work. So if the companies themselves are going to look different, it only stands to reason that we're going to need a new type of leader or a different type of leader to lead those types of organizations. What does that new leader look like?